Hello and welcome to episode number 2 of Make Some Noize with Jammie Bosstel. And our guest today is a legendary Helix singer, Brian Vollmer. How are you doing today, Brian?
All right, just like Tony the Tiger.
And I want you guys to know what a major rock star Brian is. I mean, he is so kind because he's been sick and he's getting well. He forgot about the interview, but he told me, you know what, Jason, I want to go ahead and do the interview. So, I mean, thanks for doing that, Brian. We really appreciate it. I hope you're feeling better. Um, you got a great new Helix CD out, Scrap Metal. So let's start off talking a little bit about the new CD, because I understand it's a combination of some new tunes and some reworked Helix tunes.
That's correct. We started off. I usually, when I go to do an album, I take all the songs that I've been writing lately and go into my folders. And I go put them beside each other, see which ones fit and which ones don't. And I started going back to some of the demos we did in the late '80s, and some of them are pretty good songs that were never finished. And Sean Kelly, who does a lot of writing with me, and Sean plays for Lee Aaron, who plays for Gilby Clarke, Nelly Furtado, a lot of big bands. And Sean was the one that said, "Look, a lot of these songs are really good. We should finish them off." And ironically, we had written a song between the two of us called "Stuck in the '80s," which really is about that whole decade of music, how it stood out so much, and people are still playing those songs by Van Halen, Def Leppard, Rat, LA Guns. So we decided to take those demos, finish them off, add that new song that was sitting there for 2 years called Stuck in the '80s. And then I went and cherry picked songs from some of the lesser known Helix albums that maybe only sold a couple thousand units, stuff like Half Alive, Old School, and what was the other one? B-Sides. And so I just took the very best songs off those albums, and that became side two. And it was a labor of love putting this together. And the album's doing very well. Went to 46 on the Amazon heavy metal chart the other day, and number 9 in Canada. We got something like 230,000 streams. So it's cooking.
That's great. Now I'm going to throw it to Jammie. I'm sure you're as big of a Helix fan as I am, Jammie, right?
Right. Yeah, I checked out a lot of the material recently. I've heard a lot about Helix. I checked them out more in depth and stuff, and I like the song Danger Zone. That's a really good song. Yeah, Stuck in the '80s pretty good, and the Scrap Metal album definitely sounds good. And I noticed that some of the bands that you opened up for, you opened for Rush. That's pretty awesome, man.
I was on the Grace Under Pressure tour, and I think we played Nassau Coliseum, Meadowlands, and Largo, Maryland. And when we played at Meadowlands, we were backstage, and that's when we found out that the Walking the Razor's Edge album had gone gold in Canada. And I was filming it with my movie camera, and somebody in the back went, "Yeah, and in 2 weeks we're going to go platinum." Everybody laughed. And we did. And we toured with all sorts of bands that year. I think we ended up on the White Snake Quiet Riot tour for most of that, playing 20,000 seat halls across the United States. But we played with all sorts of bands, probably over 200 recording acts in our career. And we spent a lot of time down in the United States. So I'm hoping that this album will get us back into that marketplace. And I'd love to be down touring around. I'm in Florida right now. That's where I live 6 months of the year. And
Oh, okay.
a lot of American friends. And I just love living down here. So
Where you at in Florida, Brian?
Fort Myers.
Oh, my friends live in Port Charlotte. Not
Oh,
far
yeah.
from you guys, from you at all, man. Yeah, that's awesome. I was gonna say, how's the weather in Canada? But if you're in Florida, it's great there, right?
I could definitely say the weather in Canada is shitty.
Same as Indiana, man. I'm in South Bend,
Not
Indiana.
as good as here, that's for sure.
Yeah, definitely, for sure. That's awesome. And your voice is holding up pretty good at your age, huh?
Yes, I was lucky because I lost my voice in 1976, and I was told I would never sing again. And
Wow.
my manager took me to a vocal coach by the name of Edward Johnson, who at one time was the youngest member of the New York Metropolitan Opera, and he knew how to sing bel canto. a lot of people say they sing bel canto, but they really don't sing bel canto. Bel canto, the true bel canto, was started by Leonardo da Vinci way back in the 14th century or something, or
Wow.
16th century.
Okay.
And it's based on science and the anatomy of the body, and it means beautiful voice in Italian. And when I went to Ed Johnson, he took me aside, he put his arm around my shoulder and said, "Look at kid," he said, "just do what I tell you to do, and your nodes will go away," because I had nodes or polyps on my vocal cords. And they went away in a year, which was miraculous, really. And I went on to have a very successful career, and I'm still singing now. I'm 70 years old. My voice is in great shape. And that's the way it should be if you're singing properly. A lot of singers, especially rock singers, get into some major problems because they have too much tension down here around the thyroid cartilage where your vocal cords or your vocal folds are located. And when they strike each other too violently, they swell up along the inner edges. And initially, you lose your top notes first. And then if you continue doing it, you get nodes or polyps like I had. And a node or a polyp is really just a callus. And when you get that node or polyp, your vocal cords can't vibrate correctly, especially in the high notes, which vibrate at a much faster frequency. And you're left with maybe 2 or 3 notes around middle C where you talk. So I was very lucky I didn't have that happen to me. And even if you get your nodes scraped or taken off with a laser beam, that's how they do it nowadays, they're going to keep coming back because you really haven't gotten rid of the reason they're there in the first place, which is vocal tension. In other words, having all that muscular tension down here in your neck when you're singing.
Oh, wow.
Very,
And,
very interesting.
and
Yeah.
Brian, go ahead, Jamie. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, back in the 80s, you had to sing high. I see that there's a lot of high singers back in the 80s. Like, I mean, not to bring them up, I saw Slaughter recently, and Mark can't sing as high as he used to. Jeff Keith from Tesla can't sing as high as he used to. How's that holding up for you as far as range wise? Is that doing pretty good then?
Pretty good. You know, you learn too how to take, I should say, a little break when you're singing. When I initially recorded those songs, I was singing all the parts. I was singing the chorus, I was singing the verse. So nowadays, when we get to the chorus, usually I'm singing the scats in between the actual chorus line, rather than trying to cover all the parts, because it's damn near impossible, even back in the day when I originally sang the songs. So, but for the most part, I'm singing the notes that I sang originally, and hopefully I'm singing them well. We still
You are, Brian. I got to say, and let me ask you about as big of a Helix fan as I am. One of the songs I'm glad you redid on here because it somehow got by me. I really love the song "Same Room." It's maybe the softer side of Helix, if you will. It's kind of the most different sounding song on there. I think that's part of the reason it stands out. It's a bit of an anthem. I just love it.
That song was written by the group called Sire, and they're friends of ours, and they used to be in the same management stable as us with Bill Sipe. And Doug Weir, who was one of the writers of that song, the lead singer of Sire, him and I are like best friends. So I still see Dougie all the time back home. But yeah, I've always loved that song too. It originally appeared on the Half Alive album, and now it's on this album along with the Pusher, which I think is a great rendition of that song.
And the Pusher, I understand, is originally a Steppenwolf song, correct?
That's right. And I was lucky enough to play with Steppenwolf 3 times and actually sit down and talk with John Kay, who was one of my early influences when I first got into music. First album I ever bought was Guess Who, American Woman. And then I bought Monster by Steppenwolf, Steppenwolf 7, all sorts of stuff by that band.
Let me ask you, Brian, when you were coming up, because you've got a great, as we've been talking, you had a great sounding kind of voice, your own kind of sound going, which is very hard to do. And in listening to Helix over years, I just kind of curious because again, you've kind of got your own unique sound. You don't listen to Helix and think, oh, he's trying to be the next Aerosmith or anything like that. So my question for you is, growing up, was there a singer or two that really inspired you? That you said, wow, that guy, I wish I could do like that.
Well, there was a lot of singers I admired. Joe Cocker, I was lucky enough to meet him in my career. John Kay, Bert Cummings from the Guess Who. But you know, I had so many singers that I liked. Stevie Marriott from Humble Pie, Mick Jagger. There wasn't just one guy, but I used to really like Joe Cocker.
Oh wow, okay. I'll throw it to you, Jamie.
I thought when I first heard Helix, I thought you had a Vince Neil vibe. Your voice kind of had a Vince Neil sound. People tell you that?
No, really. Somebody said that the last time they saw us play live. I know Vince. I've played with Vince quite a few times.
Not Vince Neil now. I meant Vince Neil from the
Yeah.
80s. Yeah, totally, man. I thought when I first heard it, I was like, kind of sounds like Vince Neil, but you came before Vince Neil.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, when we first were touring out in Western Canada, just before we got signed, around 1981, 82, Motley Crue were just coming up into Alberta. I remember they got stopped at the border because they had all these wristbands with deadly metal things on them. And
Yeah.
they played the same bar as we did in Lloydminster, Alberta, which straddles the Alberta-Saskatchewan border. And I don't think they had any people there when they played, but neither did we either. So I guess we're even in that respect. The funny thing about that town was it straddles the border. So there was a beer strike on the other side. So we were empty. The place that was serving the beer was full.
Wow. You know, I was reading, Brian, that Rocky remains the band's biggest hit song. And oddly enough, it's become like a big rock anthem, you know, in Canada. And oftentimes I was reading that people go in Canadian sports arenas and it's played a lot of events and stuff. What's that like for you to have a song where, you know, it gets that kind of attention?
Well, it is our signature song, but there's actually other songs that did very well for us. Heavy Metal Love went to heavy rotation on MTV. Which is kind of unheard of nowadays. Deep Cuts the Knife
doesn't even exist. Helix outlived it, you know. Yeah.
Deep Cuts the Knife went to double breaker status on American radio, which means that 2/3 of all the stations in our genre of music was playing that song. Then we had other songs that were hit songs in Canada, Good the Last Drop, Make Me Do Anything You Want. So it depends on the territory. You know, in the early days of the band, we were Del Shannon's band for 2 weeks when we were only about 6 months old. And Del Shannon, same thing. He'd go to different territories, and yes, Runaway was the biggest song, and Hats Off to Larry. But then the songs underneath that, there would be different songs that were hits in different territories. If you go to Australia, you'd have a different set list than, say, if you went to Ireland or if you went to the United States. So we're kind of like that in that respect too. We're known for Rock You, but we actually had many other hits in many other territories.
Oh yeah, you know, like Heavy Metal Love you mentioned and Good to the Last Drop. Those are like two of my all-time favorite. And it shows kind of the two sides of the band. You know, that's kind of my introduction is Heavy Metal Love. That's when I first seen Helix. You know, for the first time because, like you said, it was all over MTV. Yeah. I'm gonna throw it to you, Jamie. Yeah.
Oh, I wore my Rush shirt for you, by the way.
Well, you know, I was with Alex Lifeson in the Trailer Park Boys movie Countdown to Liquor Day.
Yeah, I was going to mention you were on Trailer Park Boys in 2009, right?
Yeah. Those guys are all friends of mine. So
it's pretty awesome. Yeah. My wife and I, we like Trailer Park Boys too. Pretty funny, for sure. So how's Planet Helix doing?
Well, the actual building, I sold the house.
Oh, really?
It's right behind where I live. I moved across the fire lane. So when I get up in the morning, I can see it right out my back window, only I don't have to maintain the property now. It was a big job. You know, when I'd come home off the road and I'd be cutting hedges and trimming trees and mowing lawns and,
Look like a lot of work, man. Yeah.
and painting and all the stuff that was entailed for that house. Because we literally built that house with architectural antiques from the area. So I was always dragging stuff home, and you know, we'd strip down the wood and restain it and put it up, and I had a really skilled carpenter that would work it into the design of the house, and we did that for almost 30 years, and then one day I sold it.
Oh wow!
Wow. Sure. Did you keep the gate?
No, the gate stayed there. All the metal stayed there.
The Helix gate?
They actually took the Helix off. I think the Helix is in my garage somewhere. So.
Oh, awesome. Okay.
In other words, they left the gate up, but they took the Helix off. So
Yeah. Okay. Okay. That's cool. So you plan on touring with off this new album then? Scrap metal then?
we'll play as much as we can. I'm presently working on the U.S. agent, John Domagal of ARM. He's done other dates for us in the past. In Canada, we just got another festival last night. For us in Canada, where we were almost a double platinum act, it's mostly casinos, festivals, fairs, things like that. So we got some big gigs coming up this summer in Canada, and hopefully we'll fill in around those with American dates if we get lucky. And who knows, maybe we'll snag some gigs over in Europe as well, because
What do
we
you,
toured a lot in all those territories back in the day. So the the idea back then was always if things went soft in one market, we'd have other places to go play, which is what has really happened with the band over the years. Has kept us, one of the things that's kept us alive.
right? So you plan on coming to Indiana at all?
I'd love to come to Indiana.
I love in Indiana. I live in South Bend, Indiana, but I know some venues in Northwest Indiana that could probably book you too. I play in a band myself, playing a band called Praise the Fallen. I
Mhm.
started the band in 2009 with John Sturr of Lillian Axe. I don't know if you remember them at all.
I think we played with Lillian Axe and at Hammerjacks in Baltimore. Does that sound right?
Is that in Texas, in Dallas?
Oh, that was in Baltimore,
Oh, Baltimore. Okay.
and I think it was they were playing there in the week, Lillian Axe, and then Motorhead came in. We were with Motorhead, and they were playing a Lillian Axe's gear, and Lillian Axe tried to cut their gear back, and Motorhead completely fucked up their gear, and
Oh,
we got caught in the middle.
Oh
John
wow.
told that story, but John Sturr actually lived with me for a while. He was
Yeah.
the blonde guitar player in Lillian Axe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. So I started my band with him. He actually is from Michigan, and he met me. I was in a band that was pretty popular in my area, and we got together. I'm a songwriter too, and I
Yeah.
can respect that, dude. That you're a singer songwriter and that and your story for sure. I get
Well,
it.
that's why I've stayed in the business this long. I got in the business to write songs,
Yes.
perform songs, and I still enjoy writing. As recently as a couple weeks ago, I was up in Toronto with Sean Kelly once again writing. We got three songs on the go right now. I write with my old bass player from 7 Year Itch, my weekend band that I used to have many years ago, Tony Pesci. We wrote the Pigs Fly album and a few other songs, and we have three or four songs that we're working on. So, like I said, I'm always working on new material. And then when I'm ready to do an album, I just go and I go, okay, here's all these songs. Which songs match up with one another? And go
Yeah,
from
yeah.
there.
Brian, that's the thing I love about you and Helix is, Helix is at a point in your career where you've got the catalog of music. If you want to do like all these other great bands that we grew up on that and just live off your, hey, Helix go out every summer and just play the greatest hits. But I love the fact that you still continue, like you said, to put out new music. Because to me, that's what it's all about.
What is all that is what it's about for sure.
That is what it's about. And when we go out, we do still play all the hits. Don't get me wrong, because that's what the fans come to hear
Sure. Yeah.
when they come to the show. But we try to stick a few maybe songs in, or we'll stick in songs that we haven't played in a long time, because I think our catalog right now is about 190 songs. So we have a
Wow.
lot of songs we can pick from. Usually when you're in a support slot, you have like a 40, 50-minute set at the very
Sure.
most. So there's can't get too many songs in there, probably around 10, 12 songs. So
Yeah.
190. And if you're doing the hits, well, we always do Dirty Dog. We always do Heavy Metal Love, Rock You, Deep Cuts the Knife, Wild in the Streets. Sometimes Kids Are All Shaken. So
Uh,
once you get through all those songs, there's not much room.
yeah. In
We
fact,
do
talking
Stuck in
about,
the 80s,
yeah,
which goes over great. We
yeah.
just finished a Nazareth tour in last October,
Oh,
which
wow.
took us from Ottawa all the way out to Vancouver, British Columbia. And on that tour, we only had 40 minutes a night. So we love it because we just go out there and pound
Yeah,
for 40
I
minutes.
bet you do. And another song I love off the new album is Tie Me Down. That's kind of another different one for Helix, but I just love the sound of it. Yeah.
I love that song too. I wrote that with Anthony Vandenberg in Toronto a long time ago. We also wrote the Danger Zone together, and I've always thought that was a good slow song. That was originally on the Old School album, and like I said, I've always loved the song. Daryl did a great job producing that song. You know, I have a great production team with Aaron Murray and Daryl Gray. I've found the perfect combination, I think. Aaron's a guy that's on the cutting edge of where production's going. He was a student of Danny Broadbeck, who was a student of Jack Richardson, who did the Guess Who, Bob Seger, all sorts of people. And Danny worked with Dolores O'Riordan. But they're all kind of from Fanshawe College, which is my hometown, London, Ontario. And I've worked with Aaron since, I think, 2008. And that he just keeps getting better, that guy. And then Daryl has been producing out of his studio up in St. Catharines, and he did a couple albums for me. So I brought them both together for this album. And the nice thing about Daryl is he really knows what Helix should sound like.
Oh, sure.
So between him and Aaron working on the production, I think they did an excellent job. And I'm so happy that they were the guys doing the production.
Oh, wow, wow. You know, and I want to end this interview on a little bit of some trivia here. I'm learning for the first time that Helix was originally named the Helix Field Band.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Our manager got us to change our name, shorten it to Helix.
Okay, and
we
I'm going to throw it to you, Jammie, allow you to wrap up today's interview, whatever what you want to ask Brian.
I was 3 years old when you started, man.
Yeah.
In 1974, I just noticed that, you know, but I totally respect what you're doing 100%.
I was 4 years old.
You look like you're not that old now.
Yeah, man, that's awesome. What Whitesnake tour was it that you opened for them on? I love Whitesnake too.
It actually wasn't a Whitesnake tour. It was a Quiet Riot tour, and Whitesnake was backing up Riot, and we were the opening act. That was in 1984. That was on Slide It In, I think.
Nice.
Sorry, it was Still of the Night.
Nice. Oh, that's so nice, dude. Me as a singer, you know, influenced in the 80s, I was influenced by David Coverdale and Sebastian Bach. Those are my influences when I started.
Well, ironically, Neil Murray, who was the bass player for Whitesnake at that time, was a guy that rented a room off my wife. My wife had a flat in Shepherd's Bush down from the BBC in London, England. My wife worked at the original Hard Rock Cafe, and she served everybody from Joan Rivers to Muhammad Ali. And she used to rent one of the rooms in her flat, and Neil Murray rented the room. So I actually met Neil before I met my wife. And then, you know, we still see Neil, we still talk to him. And when he came to Toronto many years later, he was playing bass for Brian May. And we all went out for supper. It was me and Brian May and Neil and Cozy Powell and Spike. I don't know what Spike's last name was, but he was a famous keyboard player out here. And we all went out for supper at this private little Chinese restaurant. It was just us sitting there.
Wow. Wow. Well, Brian, I can't thank you enough for joining us for our new show, Make Some Noise. Thanks for being our second guest ever. It was a real honor talking to you today, my friend. And
the pleasure's all mine. Thanks, guys.
Yeah.
Hey, no problem.
Care, Brian.
Thank you very much for having me.